If you're thinking of making a move to the southern Denver suburbs, this video's got everything you're gonna need to make that move.
That's right. Today we're going through a market update for the southern Denver suburbs, what's happening in 2026, what's coming in 2027. Because if you think you know what's happening in Denver, the suburbs can be an entirely different market.
Absolutely.
So we're going to keep going through the pros and cons of a new build versus a resale home, the tax implications, the financial implications, and teach you how to get yourself $25,000 in concessions.
Ooh, that would be nice. We are Jake and Megan Friedel. We are your brother-sister team, full-time real estate agents, part-time tour guides to all things Southern Denver living.
So if you're moving here in 900 days or you need to get here tomorrow, we can start touring homes for you before you even fly into town.
Yep, we hope folks just like you every day do exactly that. Now let's jump into living in Southern Denver.
So let's start with where we're at right now in 2026. So everyone's talking about this balance coming to the real estate market. And I think that's really true. Things are starting to get normal. We're down from the big boom and we kind of had a slow year last year, but things are really returning to normal and you're seeing some recovery.
Man, but when I'm in Denver, we're gonna compare a little bit about Denver versus the southern suburbs. I feel like Denver is still experiencing so much slowness.
You know, and that is true, especially for condos. So what we're seeing is like, as we go through, things that recover fastest is always the single family homes, and condos always lag behind that. And that's because single family homes are really the driver of the real estate market.
Yeah, that's true for Denver right now too. A single family home in Denver is doing fine, but a condo, it's just taking a lot longer.
That's right. And you know, I've noticed that the million to 1.5 million price point is actually going pretty quickly overall.
Yeah, but let's talk about how that's a little different in the southern Denver suburbs.
So when we say southern Denver suburbs today, we're really focusing on Highlands Ranch, Lone Tree, Meridian, Parker, Castle Rock, Sedalia, these sort of Douglas County areas. And what we're seeing is that much like in a big city, hot neighborhood, hotter price points, things move faster. So when we're talking about Highlands Ranch, things are pretty hot in Highlands Ranch right now, whereas things are moving a little more slowly in Castle Rock.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen that be true this year. You're shopping in Highlands Ranch, you pop over to Castle Rock, completely different experiences.
We actually have the perfect case test for this right now. We just sold 2 houses in Highlands Ranch and 2 houses in Castle Rock, and it was a different experience. Not like black and white different, but definitely a few more days on market in Castle Rock.
Yeah, it's notable, right? I mean, when I just had my buyers out in Castle Rock last week, we came across their perfect home, really. And it had been on the market for 32 days. And their question to me was, Megan, what's wrong with this home? And you know, it's kind of funny for us because 32 days is not the end of the world, but for what we just came out of, it makes people think there's gotta be something wrong. How has this not been scooped up yet? And the reality is just certain places that's really pretty normal. I mean, median days on market in Castle Rock is really around 26 days on market. So to see something 32 doesn't mean that the home is falling down or insanely overpriced.
That's right. And from a seasonal perspective, we see that things always slow down in May. The kids graduate, things move a little slower. All the agents in town want to know our feedback on their listings. And that's a really good reason to call us in advance so we can help plan out the seasonality of the market and help you figure out when the time is to get the best deal.
100%. So Highlands Ranch tends to be moving a little bit quicker this year than Castle Rock. There's also areas in Parker where these luxury communities are selling way faster than the starter homes in Parker.
And you know, we're actually seeing the luxury market moving a little faster than like the below $1 million market. What we're seeing is that these folks are maybe less price sensitive and rate sensitive right now. And they're just ready to go for it because, you know, if you already own a home especially, you're probably feeling bottlenecked by the last few years of crappy inventory and rates, and you're just hitting the point where it's like, we have to move now, we're ready to go. You have a house to sell, and so you have equity, so you're just less price sensitive in that for that reason.
Yeah, and I think because of that, that's why we're seeing like that 1 million to like 1.4 million-ish. It tends to be moving a little bit faster, but it's not just your neighborhood or your price point. There's also certain features that the home can have in Southern Denver that's really gonna make a difference.
That's right, like if you back up to some open space.
Which is common here. In Southern Denver, we have so many trails that weave in and out of these neighborhoods. I mean, the suburbs are really built around all this open trail access and open space. And so if you have that, I mean, even if you're not the most updated, it's gonna go.
But I will say, if you're updated really well, folks are price sensitive generally about the cost of construction and the cost of materials. So if you have a house that's really well updated, that's gonna sell much faster. Or if you're buying a house that's really updated, that's gonna sell a lot faster with more competition, because folks look at these houses that need a lot of work and they're just dragging their feet and they don't want to. So
And they don't have the money to.
Exactly.
Just to give you an idea of what a home is looking like in these southern Denver suburbs, I took the last year of data and I'm just going to give you the medians to see what the typical home seems like. It was a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 2,300 above grade square footage, with the total square footage being 3,600 square feet. The median closed price last year was $737,000, and it spent 25 days in the MLS. The average build year was 2004. Gone are the days where every home you're seeing hit the market, updated or not, is going 5% or more over asking price.
Oh, thank God.
Because I think we all forget for a second how much that sucked.
I mean, it was nice as a seller, but then where were you going to go afterwards?
So it's still scary as a seller.
Yeah, so it's very different now. We're saying, so starting with a lower price point, like $500 to $750, those homes are going for average about 98% of the list price. So that's not a ton of wiggle room. But it is something, right? Like, so 2% of $500,000 is 10 grand. So that's $10,000 on your closing costs to buy your rate down, to do anything creative like that.
Can you explain a little bit what you would use that for? So if instead of going and taking that off of the purchase price, which is not a bad idea, what are the other ways that you can kind of start to use that?
Other great ways to use that are paying out your loan closing costs at closing, right? So there's a bunch of loan closing costs, and we can pay things forward, like pay forward a year of your homeowner's insurance and buy down the rate to a lower rate, or maybe do a temporary buy down because maybe you've got some student loans falling off for the next year, or maybe you're just hoping to refinance them next year or two. We're always careful with that advice, but then let's hop into the higher price point. So if we're looking more like $1 million, these homes are more going for an average price of 96% of list price, which at $1 million home is $40,000.
And some of these are going for 96%, and they're still getting those concessions you're talking about.
Right, we're just talking about sales price. So there's also concessions available in that. That's hard to see when you're searching around with Zillow or Redfin, is like, how much did they get in concession?
It's impossible to see. That's really where you need a real estate agent to be pulling that data and informing you on what's happening.
That's right. And so then one more piece about this list price versus sale price ratio is that we are seeing those turnkey homes are going for a lot, and those are still going above asking price. As a matter of fact, the expectations are something like Zillow tells us that the turnkey homes are selling for 5% above expected sale prices. And some of these houses that still need a lot of work are selling for up to 14% below expected sales prices.
Now, speaking of these concessions and list price versus close price, there's a lot of hubbub about what the right thing to do here is. And now I understand if you take a 1-minute soundbite of someone giving it advice, it's often just boiled down too much and it's giving too direct of an answer to a more complicated scenario. But I'm pretty riled up about some real estate influencers online acting like you're an idiot if you ever negotiate the price down and don't just take everything in concessions.
That's right. Like these little soundbite people who are like trying to just catch your attention and tell you like, you're an idiot. If you give money off the price of your home, you got to use the concessions. These people are who caused a lot of problems the last time around when the market dipped.
Yeah, so the way I think of concessions is not free money to go grab. I think it's borrowing your equity a little bit early, because anything you could have gotten as a concession up front, you also could have just gotten off of the price point. It's the same thing to the seller. The seller does not have any difference to their net if they give you money off the price or if they give you a concession. So if you got one, you could get the other. And if you're taking a full, call it like 25, 30K, and you're taking it all in concessions, you basically just cashed out on 30 grand of your equity early. And that can get you into big trouble.
That's right. When you're taking concessions, you have to think about is that you're actually just financing those concessions and you're paying that 6% interest rate on those concessions. So take 10 grand to pay for your loan closing costs, keeps money in your pocket now, but you're paying 6% interest on that money you borrowed.
Yeah, and say, we always encourage people, own your home for a longer term, but say something happens and in 3 years you've got to sell. Well, if you took that $30K early, there might not be any equity left and you might be under what you need to close.
All right, let's hop into a little bit of the difference between new build and resale in Southern Denver living. So, Megan, one of the problems with a new build sometimes is like, man, you're gonna move so far out to an undeveloped community and be so far away from everything.
Yes, I will say that is very true of Denver. I mean, you have to go out to the airport almost to get into a lot of these new build communities. Not true with a lot of the Southern Denver suburbs. We have this unique thing where we have a lot of little plots of new build communities kind of sprinkled throughout. You're not having to go super far east or super far south, although, of course, if you go super far east and south in Douglas County, you will find more.
But there's these nice little pockets, like Lone Tree is a super developing area. There's Meridian, which is kind of like West Parker area, where really this land is just being filled in, and there's tons of development, especially in Lone Tree. And there's cool restaurants coming, and there's like the whole Park Meadows Mall. So really that area is filling in nicely.
And so if you're dreading the idea of having to wait for all the infrastructure to be built, and you're dreading the idea of living in an area where there's not a single mature tree in sight, I will say Southern Denver has a lot of pockets where you get to avoid all that and just kind of jump into a community with a brand new house.
But there's no avoiding dreading the problem of taxes. We'll get into that later. So what are the communities that are still kind of far out and further from things? And what are the communities that are actually already pretty close?
Well, if you're looking at Castle Rock and Parker, there are some communities on like the southern and eastern borders that do still feel kind of far out for things. So we're thinking like Looking Glass is a big one. I think like Montaigne still feels pretty far.
Sterling Ranch and Highlands Ranch.
Sterling Ranch going over to the west side, that it just doesn't have a lot built out for it yet. So it does still have that kind of far out feel. Whereas you're looking at like Meridian Village or any of these little Lone Tree developments, they still have that already built feel. But even these more built out communities like Meridian Village, for example, it doesn't have a full exemption from being a new build and having some of those pain points. Like there was a middle school that was proposed in Meridian Village that was supposed to be built, and it never actually ended up being built because the community, despite feeling like it's not, is still in its infancy stage. And so because of that, they didn't have the capacity to fill it, and there's not a middle school there. So if you're living there, you have to do quite a drive to get to your middle school. And that's, some of the pain points that come with new builds. And it's not all bad when it comes to new builds. Those are just a few of the pain points. And I'm well versed in them because we do help a lot of people find new build places and they really love them. But I'm well versed on some of the bad stuff because I've lived through a lot of it. I actually have a whole video where I kind of talk smack about new builds. It's called The Dark Side of New Builds. Check that out. But let's lighten it up and talk about some of the great things about new builds.
There are some great things. Some of us can be objective about this subject. So aside from getting all new stuff, new roof, new HVAC, new windows, and all of that, there's actually a lot of financial perks right now with the new builds.
Especially here in Southern Denver.
Especially here in Southern Denver. So what we're actually seeing is more negotiation on the original list price to the closed price. So we're seeing in that lower tier, 500 to 750, homes close something like 96% of their original list price. If you move up in the purchase price range up to $1 million, we're seeing 94%, which is huge. That's like $60,000 off. And that's not even counting the concessions these folks are giving. So that's like we warned before about concessions. You got to be careful about it. But the thing about these new builds is they're often not willing to do a price reduction instead of the concessions because they're trying to protect sort of the image of the community that like, hey, we're selling these $1 million homes and yeah, we're going to give you $25,000 in concessions, but we won't do it as a price drop.
Because we don't want that to show up in our sale price.
So the key to getting those $25,000 concessions we were talking about earlier, you just kind of got to show up right now. And we actually may be able to negotiate those higher if the concessions are what you're looking for, but they're harder on the purchase price itself. But as you move up in the price range, actually, interestingly, as you go above $1 million, there's a little less negotiation on the price. And if you go above $2 million, there's almost none. This is a weird one. Above $2 million price point in the Douglas County area is not very negotiable, and these houses are selling quickly.
Okay, I do have one more thing that I kind of wanted to say.
You just can't help yourself, can you?
I can't. So one more con about these new build communities, and Southern Denver is no exception, is the taxes on things from, the lowest pocket of resale taxes to the highest pocket of new build taxes could be 3 times the annual tax amount. And that can hurt.
And you can be sure that it's probably at least double, maybe double plus, because they're saying it's about 0.55% in Douglas County overall, but a new build is going to be 1.25%, which on $1 million home, it's like $6,000 a year.
It is. And hey, that brings us to our next topic. This is a great lead-in because we also just want to talk to you about taxes in general, not just new builds, but on resale and how they differ all around the different communities in Southern Denver. So among the resale communities within the Southern Denver and suburbs, there's a little bit more diversity than you might expect in the annual tax amounts. So starting off in Highlands Ranch, the median here, what I used was a purchase prices of about $750 across the board for all the communities I'm about to talk about, just to put this into like a realistic term for you. But for about a $750,000 home in Highlands Ranch, your median tax bill for the annual year is gonna be $4,600. And that's pretty good, especially when you consider that Highlands Ranch has a metro district. A lot of the time when you see a metro district attached to a community, those taxes start to just really bump up. But not so in Highlands Ranch. They maintain the trails, all of the outside areas, and they do a great job. If you move over into Parker, there's a little bit of diversity in the tax rates there.
That's right. There's a couple of neighborhoods on the lower end, like we've got Cottonwood, Clark Farms, Canterbury. These are all pretty much in line with Highlands Ranch.
Yeah, those are on the lower end. Of course, this is one of those typical communities where as you start to move up, as in the newness of the community, then those start to go up, which makes sense. Castle Rock is another community that has actually a pretty surprising tax piece to it. So it does follow that standard thing we've been talking about where the newer builds are gonna have the higher taxes. But there's also one standout community that has some higher taxes, and it's Founders Village. And although Founders Village does have a couple pieces of it where there is some newer homes built out, it's in general an older community, and even those older homes still have a much higher tax rate. So we're really looking there when we were saying about $4,600 for the lower end of Parker and for Highlands Ranch, we're gonna see more like $5,800 to $6,000 in Founders Village, which is just below what you're seeing for a lot of those new builds. Well, what else are we missing for things you might want to know about Southern Denver suburbs before you move here?
I'd say maybe like the general vibe of each community. Hey, it turns out we have some videos on those things. So for neighborhood tours and general overall layouts of all these communities, follow our channel, subscribe, and make sure you check those other videos out.
And when you've got more questions after those videos, that's what we're here for. Schedule a Zoom call with us, hop on the phone with us, text us, whatever is your preferred method of communication. We're so excited to hear from you and help you make your move within or to the Denver area.
We're excited to meet you, and thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.